Welcome to part 7 of Fake It Till You Make It SakuAtsu 10k special! Yay! I want to say something. Oh yeah, we're nearing the end. It's getting dramatic. Prepare. Also, a little warning for homophobia. You'll see. Sakusa still struggled to calm his racing heart, trying in vain to convince himself that this was just the same as when they were changed together in the locker rooms. Yet, he knew it wasn't. He didn't expect to see him like that and failed to control his reaction. Deep breaths. It's gonna be alright. Atsumu asked to look around for a bit, so that was the plan for today. Under no circumstances would he risk leaving him alone to accidentally cross paths with his parents so they could say to him whatever vile things came to mind just because he wasn't around. In other words, he'd give him a tour of the house today, and much more importantly, the gardens. They were his personal favorite. He smiled as he thought about the calm atmosphere that always hung in the air around the trees. His parents rarely went out further than a couple of yards where they would host tea parties, so the rest was mostly kept untouched. The housekeepers kept it in shape, but didn't go out of the way to remove weeds and similar things. It resulted in beautiful meadows filled with wildflowers and dandelions. Whatever nonchalance he had accomplished with thinking about the gardens vanished as soon as Atsumu entered the room. Asada didn't lie when he said his outfits would get progressively more provocative. Yet Sakusa still failed to imagine this. It wasn't overly sexual or sensual, nor did it show a lot of his body except for his muscular legs. The overall image seemed to almost have an innocent touch to it, as though Atsumu had no idea what he was doing at all. That illusion was quickly destroyed by the dangerous, mischievous glint in the setter's eyes. Atsumu was wearing a yellow skirt with a dark grey sweater. It was simple, really, but gorgeous nonetheless. The yellow complemented his golden eyes perfectly, and the dark sweater created a stark contrast to the lighter colors of his skirt and skin. You like it? You look good. Then, as though Atsumu's enthusiasm was contagious, he smirked as well. My parents will hate it. Atsumu laughed. I figured. The first part of the walk went uneventful. As expected, his parents weren't in the gardens and they could enjoy the calm surroundings without much disturbance. Atsumu clung to his arm since they left the room, waving happily at Kaya as they passed the living room, who returned the gesture with a smile, and smirked as his mother gasped, watching them from afar. He gave her the same bright smile, pretending he had no idea what could be the reason for her sorrow. However, even after they left the room and followed a narrow path deeper into the greenery outside until a veil of leaves covered them from unwanted eyes, Atsumu never let go. And Sakusa didn't want to either. He was oddly content with having Atsumu this close. They leisurely strolled through the trees and meadow, talking about trivial things and enjoying the gentle warmth of a spring sun. The weather was perfect. Mild and not so warm, but the freezing cold of winter had long passed. Atsumu did most of the talking as usual, and Sakusa listened as usual. However, this time he didn't pretend he wasn't, as he watched the setter fondly. He was so expressive and lively. It was a quality considered undesirable when he grew up. He missed it. Somewhere between Atsumu daydreaming of his brother's food and complaining about the rather strict meal plan he had to follow during the season, Sakusa's thoughts drifted off. He imagined what it would be like if this was real. If he would come back to this place in half a year with Atsumu by his side again. Would the blonde try to act more amicable? Maybe even be intimidated by them like Kaya? He found it hard to imagine, yet wasn't it exactly because this wasn't real that Atsumu could act so carelessly? Would he even want to be dragged into this after seeing the worst of them? Ami? What? Atsumu looked at him with a frown, and something like concern reflected in his eyes. Are you okay? Do you need a break? Are you yellow? Atsumu, I'm okay. I'm sorry, I just spaced out. That is one way to put it. You seemed fully dissociated, like you weren't even here anymore, like... Okay, I get it. His voice sounded harsher than intended, and Atsumu stepped back a bit. He hadn't even noticed that the blonde had let go of his hand. Sakusa pressed his lips together tightly and hardened his mask so as not to let his disappointment show. Okay. Yeah, sure, you're okay. You can always say yellow. He took a deep breath to compose himself before answering. I'm okay. I'm green, I promise. He still didn't seem convinced, but didn't press the topic and just sighed. Fine. Let's go back. Darling? His usual smirk resurfaced, and he winked at him with his usual confidence. Sakusa rolled his eyes, but smiled. Atsumu's teasing sent his heart racing, and somehow he didn't hate this feeling anymore. Yes, lunch should be served soon. Would be a shame if we missed it. His grin grew even wider, and when Sakusa offered his arm, Atsumu's eyes lit up, and he took it without a second thought, pressing himself carefully to his side as they wandered back to the house. Lunch went more amicable than expected. He partially blamed the sudden brightening aura on Komori, who walked in shortly after them. Finally, took him long enough. The libero took one look at them, then his father and mother, who both did their best to pretend neither of them was attending, and burst out laughing. He grinned at his cousin knowingly and gladly took the seat next to Atsumu. Motsuya, did you know about this? He didn't even try to feign some degree of friendliness or pretend that he didn't harbor a deep hatred. Sakusa could see the strain it cost him not to attack Atsumu directly. About them? Oh yeah, of course. Kyo wouldn't shut up about him. They are so adorably in love. Sakusa felt the distinct urge to punch his cousin, accompanied by grief that Atsumu served as a barrier between them and effectively put Komori out of his reach. For a moment, it didn't even occur to him that it could have been an act, but because... well... He really did talk about Atsumu a lot with him. To complain. Yeah. Suddenly, the heat pooling in his cheeks intensified, and he didn't dare look at the blonde next to him. That's good, right? Makes it more believable. He reaches his hand out for his glass, suspiciously eyeing Atsumu from the corner of his eye. The setter seemed to take the information in with delight, his gaze wandering from Komori to Sakusa as he propped himself up on the table and smirked. Oh, I didn't know you bragged to your cousin about me. Or did you just tell him about your deep, undying love for me? Sakusa glared at him over the edge of his glass, causing Atsumu to laugh, and he swore he heard his siblings join in as well. He was prepared to argue with both of them when Atsumu continued. Oh, don't be embarrassed, love. You don't want to know the things I told Samu. I can tell you that much. I was a total wreck. Probably scared of some of the customers. Sakusa choked on his drink, coughing in a struggle to regain his composure. Although Atsumu still couldn't suppress his amusement, he was quick to rush to Sakusa's side and rub his back apologetically. He leaned in and whispered not so quietly, "Of course, I'd be always willing to show you later." He died. That could be the only explanation for this. The only logical consequence. And he must have gone insane long before, because right now, offering Atsumu the deal seemed like the work of a madman. "That's enough! I'll allow no such things in this house. I forbid it!" His father was almost as red in the face as Sakusa, fueled by rage. It looked as though his head would explode any minute now like an unproportional balloon. However, Atsumu met his gaze with nothing but faint surprise. Innocent, as though he had no idea what enraged him so much. "My bad. Didn't mean for you to hear." He sheepishly scratched the back of his neck and settled in his seat again, closer to Sakusa than before. His father was breathing heavily, trying to harness his wrath. It was an odd and utterly unfamiliar sight. Kiyomi suspected that he held back in fear Atsumu could say even more outrageous things, which, to his credit, was a very likely possibility. In the background, Motoya, as well as Kaya, had a hard time stifling the laughs. He could see the glint of amusement in his siblings' eyes as well, but they were just like him, frozen in place by his father's anger. "Didn't your father teach you correctly? You must be a disappointment to your family. What kind of mother would have let her son go astray like that?" Sakusa gulped. He noticed without a doubt his own mother flinching at the accusation. Both of them knew what hadn't been said. Kiyomi was a disappointment as well. His mother failed him and the family. She failed at raising him correctly. It was the one thing he and his father could agree on, but for entirely different reasons. He was pulled out of his thoughts by Atsumu's hand tightening around his own. At first, he assumed it was to ground him, but when he looked up, he saw that Atsumu's smile had vanished. "What is it? Cat got your tongue? Speak, boy." "My mother did amazing. She did everything she could, and of course you'd hang on to her like a lost puppy. Isn't that always the case with people like you?" The room fell silent. No one dared utter a word. "See, I told you not to baby the boy too much just because he was the youngest. This is the result. Such disgusting things. You misled him." Sakusa's mother sank even further into her seat, but Sakusa could see the flames of rage glowing in her eyes, the words resting just at the tip of her tongue, only restrained by her lips, which were sealed shut tightly. He hated her. He hated her for abandoning him, for all the awful parenting decisions she made. He hated her because she hated him. But sometimes he wondered what kind of woman she would be today if she and his father had never met. Atsumu was now reciprocating his father's anger. Rage bubbled up within him like hot magma, and before Sakusa could stop him, he stood up. "How dare you talk to your wife and son like that? Don't you love them?" "It is because I love them that I'm disappointed. Would one who didn't care even put in the effort to feel anything?" Lies. All just stupid lies. "You are despicable, treating your family as though they were replaceable, as though your word trumps theirs. Of course it does. What kind of fantasy world do you live in? Never had a father who taught you how things work, did you?" Atsumu suddenly got very quiet, and Sakusa didn't know what to do. He looked at him in shock as his eyes started to gloss over. To add salt to the wound, a smug smirk spread on his father's face as he observed the blonde closely. "So that's it, no father. Did he see what a pathetic excuse of a son you were and ran away?" "Father, that's enough. No, Kiyomi, keep out of this." "No, you..." "If you hadn't brought him here, I wouldn't have said anything. This is your fault. I should have put you into one of those camps the moment you displayed any of this disgusting behavior, and not listen to that wife talk from your mother. Women are always too emotional about this stuff. Perhaps it was already too late to undo her damage, but at least you wouldn't have brought that into our home. He looked at Atsumu as though he was less than the dirt on his shoes. My father might have left us, but I still prefer that over having someone like you in my family. He couldn't hide the tremble in his voice, but it was so filled with hatred that it didn't matter. You don't even know the love of a father. You're just as pathetic and weak as the pathetic excuse of a father that left your mother alone to deal with you. A real father stays to make sure their sons don't become an embarrassment like you. He stays even when they are broken from the get-go and fixes them. I didn't run even though Kiyomi was always an odd child, weird from the moment he was born. If his mother hadn't been so lax with him, he could have turned out well. Instead, he's out there chasing a ball like a dog and bringing home diseases into our house. You are no different, just much worse. You're a dog infected with fleas, a stray he picked up on the side of the road, too disgusting for his own flesh and blood. Tell me, Kiyomi, do you hate us this much that you bring home a mud... He was speechless. All of them were. It had never gotten this far. Next to him, he could feel Atsumu starting to tremble. He could hear his rigid breathing and saw the tears falling from his face like waterfalls. Atsumu. Hey, Ami, do you know what Ushijima has been up to recently? All eyes were fixated on him in a mixture of shock and pity, except for his father's, who seemed convinced he had won and turned back toward his food, and his mother's, who still sat slumped over and looked at Atsumu as though he was a demon himself bringing misfortune on their family. As though it was his fault that his father lost his temper. At his words, confusion mixed with the overall shock, and Moteya and Ayuka looked at Sakusa in concern as the name fell, but the spiker understood. He gently placed an arm around Atsumu and guided him away. You haven't been dismissed, Kiyomi. His tone was sharp and laced with a warning. He hadn't been dismissed, but Atsumu had. Bring your friend to the door and return immediately. Anger filled his veins like fire. How ignorant! How... He couldn't understand how he dared to say such things. How could he think that Kiyomi wanted anything to do with him after this? I won't. I only came because I wanted to introduce my siblings to my new boyfriend. Because I wanted to see the few people of this family again I actually cared about. You claim to care about me, but you don't. Otherwise you would be happy for me. Happy for you ruining your life? I care enough to try and stop. Shut up! You don't care. Stop pretending. I was dead to you the moment I outed myself. You only torment me at this point. You hate me. You should be grateful, Brett, that I still acknowledge you at all. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. Ask the mud. I said shut up. I won't listen to you insulting him anymore. Atsumu has never done anything to you. He is kind, caring, and the absolute best person I've ever met. I love him. If this is what having no father like you means, if this is the person I would have become without you, I would gladly change the past if I could. I would gladly grow up without a father, but with a mother that loves me. He briefly looked over at her, showing her that he hadn't forgotten her involvement. What are you saying, you ungrateful? I'm saying that I'm leaving. That we are leaving and I won't return, ever. You are awful parents. I will have to work my whole life to undo the damage you caused. but at least I won't have to do it alone. With that, he turned around and left, not sparing them another glance. Well, that was definitely the most intense part so far. Whoa. If I had remembered that when I started recording, I would have put another warning at the beginning. This part definitely brought me to my limits, voice-wise, but also equipment-wise. I wish I could have actually screamed a couple of times, but my mic is not cut out for that. And oh my god, I will have to rest my throat now. Anyway, I hope you liked it. Don't forget to leave a like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss out on the future parts, which I promise there will be comfort, somewhat drama, but also comfort, which is what we all are here for, right? If the future part is already out, it should be linked here. Otherwise, there are a couple of other very good options. And now I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day even after this.